Jake Martinez wiped the sweat from his face with a dirty cloth. The sun on Kepler-7 burned hot, and the air tasted like metal and dust. He looked at his broken mining drill and shook his head. 3 months ago, the machine had stopped working. Since then, Jake had no money to fix it. The mining colony was not a good place to live. Most people here came to dig for rare metals in the ground. They hoped to get rich and leave this dry planet behind. Jake had come here 5 years ago with the same dream. Now he lived in a small metal box that the colony called home units. His was number 47, at the edge of the settlement where nobody wanted to live. Jake walked slowly back to his home. His stomach made hungry sounds. He had 1 protein bar left and some water that tasted bad. Tomorrow he would have to ask colony leader Lisa Thompson for help again. He did not like asking for help, but he had no choice. The colony had about 2,000 people. Most worked in the big mining companies. They had good equipment and made good money. Jake used to work for himself with his own drill. When it broke, he could not afford to buy parts. The companies would not hire him because they said he was too old and too slow. As Jake reached his home unit, he heard strange sounds in the sky. He looked up and saw something that made him forget about being hungry. A huge ship was coming down from the clouds. It was not like the cargo ships that came to the colony every month. This ship was alive. The ship looked like it was made of scales that changed color in the light. It moved like a giant snake swimming through the air. Jake had never seen anything like it. Other people came out of their homes to watch. Everyone was scared. The bioship landed in the open area near the colony center. The ground shook when it touched down. Jake could see that the ship was at least 3 times bigger than the colony's main building. Steam came from holes along its sides, and it made low humming sounds like a sleeping animal. Colony leader Lisa Thompson came running with her security team. She looked very worried. Jake knew why. The colony had no weapons that could fight something that big. If whoever was inside the ship wanted to hurt them, there was nothing they could do to stop it. A door opened in the side of the bioship. Did not slide open like doors on human ships. Instead, it opened like a flower, with parts that moved and twisted. Light came from inside, and Jake could smell something like flowers and rain. Then she came out. Jake had heard stories about the dragon people, but he had never seen one. The creature that stepped from the ship was 12 feet tall. Her skin was covered in scales that looked like green and blue jewels. She had a long neck and a face that was both beautiful and frightening. Her eyes were gold and seemed to look. Right through everything behind her came smaller dragons that were about the size of big dogs. Jake counted 3 of them. They had bright scales like their mother, but they looked thin and weak. They walked slowly and kept their heads down. More dragons came from the ship. These wore armor and carried weapons. Jake could tell they were guards. They formed a circle around the big dragon and her 3 children. Lisa Thompson walked forward, with her hands up to show she had no weapons. She was trying to be brave, but Jake could see her hands shaking. The universal translator box on her belt was making beeping sounds as it tried to understand the dragon language. The big dragon spoke. Her voice was deep and musical, but Jake could hear sadness in it. The translator worked slowly, making the words sound strange and broken. "I am Empress Zelfara of the Zephyrian Empire," the dragon said. "I come seeking help for my children. They are sick and will not eat. Our doctors cannot help them. They grow weaker each day." Lisa cleared her throat. "Welcome to Kepler-7 Colony, Your Majesty. I am Lisa Thompson, the colony leader. We want to help, but we do not know much about your people's medicine." The Empress looked down at her 3 children. They were sitting on the ground now, too tired to stand. Their scales had lost their bright color and looked dull. One of them, a small dragon with blue scales, made a weak crying sound. "We have tried everything," the Empress said. "The finest foods from 100 worlds. Medicine from our best healers. Nothing works. They refuse to eat anything we give them. I brought them here because someone told me humans are good at solving problems others cannot solve." Jake felt sorry for the dragon mother. He could see the pain in her golden eyes. She was just a mother trying to save her children, like any human mother would be. Lisa looked confused. "We will try to help, but our doctors only know human medicine. We have never treated your kind before." The Empress nodded slowly. "I understand, but I had to try. My children are all I have left. Their father died in the war 2 years ago. If I lose them too—" She did not finish the sentence. Jake watched the 3 young dragons. They looked so sad and tired. He remembered when his little sister had been sick years ago on Earth. He had felt the same way their mother felt now, helpless and scared. The colony people gathered around to look at the dragons, but they stayed far away. Everyone was curious, but afraid. The dragon guards watched the humans carefully, ready to fight if needed. Dr. Amy Foster, the colony's doctor, came forward. "I can try to examine them, but I do not know if it will help," she said. The Empress looked at her children. Again, they were lying down now, breathing slowly. Time was running out, and everyone could see it. Jake sat outside his home unit the next morning, eating his breakfast. It was not much of a breakfast, just some cheap beef stew from a can and a piece of hard bread. He had heated the stew on his small cooking plate, and steam rose from the metal bowl. The dragon family was still here. Their bioship sat in the colony center like a sleeping giant. Jake could see the Empress standing near her children, who lay on soft mats that her guards had brought from the ship. She had not slept all night. Jake knew this because he had not slept either. He kept thinking about those 3 sick little dragons Dr. Amy Foster had tried to help yesterday. She had looked at the young dragons with her medical tools, but nothing she did seemed to work. The dragons' bodies were too different from human bodies. Ryan Clark, who studied alien plants and animals, had come to help too. He took samples of their scales and breath, but he could not find anything wrong. The worst part was that the little dragons still would not eat. The Empress had brought out foods from her ship, strange fruits that glowed in the dark, meat that looked like it. Came from animals Jake had never seen, and liquids that changed color when you looked at them. The young dragons just turned their heads away from everything. Jake stirred his stew and watched the sad scene. The dragon with blue scales, the smallest one, tried to lift her head, but was too weak. Her mother made soft crying sounds that the translator could not turn into words. As Jake lifted a spoonful of stew to his mouth, something strange happened. All 3 young dragons suddenly lifted their heads. Their golden eyes looked straight at him. For the first time since they had arrived, they seemed interested in something. The dragons started making small chirping sounds. They tried to stand, but they were too weak. Instead, they crawled toward Jake's home unit. Their mother saw this and became worried. "Stay back." One of the dragon guards shouted at Jake. His translator made the words sound angry and dangerous, but the Empress held up her hand to stop the guard. She watched her children with surprise. They were moving faster than they had in days, crawling across the dusty ground toward the human with the bowl of food. Jake did not know what to do. He stood up slowly, holding his bowl of stew. The 3 young dragons reached the fence around his small yard and pressed against it. They were looking at his food and making hungry sounds. "What are they doing?" Lisa Townsend asked. She had come running when she saw the dragons moving. Dr. Foster came, too, along with Ryan Clark and several other people. Everyone watched as the young dragons pushed their noses through the fence holes, trying to get closer to Jake's simple meal. The smallest dragon, the one with blue scales, made a weak crying sound. She was looking right at Jake's bowl. Jake looked at the Empress, who was standing behind her children with a confused look on her face. "I think they want my food," Jake said quietly. "That is not possible," the Empress said. "They have refused the finest meals in the galaxy. Why would they want human peasant food?" Jake felt a little hurt by the word peasant, but he could see that the dragon mother was just worried about her children. He knelt down near the fence and held out a spoonful of stew toward the blue-scaled dragon. "It is not safe," a dragon guard warned, but the little dragon stretched her neck through the fence and ate the stew from Jake's spoon. Everyone watched in shock as she swallowed the food and made a happy chirping sound. For the first time in days, her scales got a little brighter. The other two young dragons pushed closer to the fence. Jake gave them each a spoonful of stew, and they ate it quickly. They wanted more. "This is impossible," Dr. Foster said. "It is the same food we tried to give them yesterday. They would not touch it when our cooks made it." Jake looked at his simple meal and then at the hungry young dragons. He opened the gate to his yard and stepped inside with them. The dragon guards moved forward, but the Empress stopped them again. Jake sat down on the ground and put his bowl between himself and the three dragons. They crawled closer and began eating from the bowl. As they ate, their scales became brighter and they seemed to get stronger. The Empress came closer, walking carefully. She had never been this close to a human before. Jake could see that she was beautiful in a scary way, with teeth like white knives and claws that could cut through metal. But her eyes were full of hope as she watched her children eat. "How is this possible?" she asked Jake. "What did you do to the food?" Jake shook his head. "Nothing. It is just cheap stew from a can. I heated it up and ate it like I always do." "Ryan." Clark was taking pictures with his camera. "We need to test this. Maybe there is something special about how Jake prepared the food." For the next hour, they tried everything. Dr. Foster made stew exactly the same way Jake had made it. She used the same can, the same heat, even the same bowl. But when she offered it to the young dragons, they would not eat it. Lisa Thompson tried. Ryan Clark tried. Even the Empress tried to feed her own children the human food. Nothing worked. The little dragons would only eat when Jake gave them the food himself. Jake gave them his bread, and they ate it. He shared his bitter coffee, and they drank it. He had some dried fruit in his home unit, and they ate that too. Everything he offered, they accepted. Everything anyone else offered, they refused. "There must be something different about you," Dr. Foster said to Jake. "Something we cannot see or measure." The Empress studied Jake with her golden eyes. "You are not like the other humans," she said. "You are poor, yes? You have little money or power?" Jake felt embarrassed. "Yes, Your Majesty. I am just a miner with a broken drill. I do not have much of anything." The Empress looked thoughtful. "In my empire, we have everything. The best food, the best medicine, the best of everything. But my children were dying until they met you. Perhaps what they need is not the best of everything. Perhaps they need something else." The smallest dragon had fallen asleep next to Jake's leg. She looked peaceful for the first time since they had arrived. The other two were also resting, but they stayed close to Jake. "What happens now?" Jake asked. The Empress looked at her children, and then at Jake. "Now, human Jake Martinez, you have become the most important person in my empire, because without you, my children will die." 3 days had passed since the young dragons first ate Jake's food. Now they followed him everywhere he went. The smallest one, who Jake learned was named Azura, liked to sleep next to his home unit at night. The other two, Ember and Storm, played simple games that Jake taught them during the day. The Empress had moved her people closer to Jake's home. She set up a camp nearby so she could watch her children. At first, she did not trust Jake. She thought he might be using some kind of human trick to control her dragons. But as the days went by, she saw that Jake really cared about them. Jake had never taken care of dragon children before, but it felt natural to him. When he was young on Earth, he had helped raise his 3 little brothers and sisters after their parents died. He knew how to be gentle with small creatures who needed help. Dr. Foster and scientist Kate Williams worked together to find out why the dragons only ate food from Jake. They tested everything they could think of. They checked Jake's hands for special chemicals. They tested his breath and even his sweat. They found nothing different about him compared to other humans. "It does not make sense," Kate said as she looked at her test results. "Jake is completely normal. There is nothing special about his body or his food." But Ryan Clark had a different idea. He had been watching Jake with the dragons very carefully. "Maybe it is not about Jake's body," he said. "Maybe it is about how he acts with them." Ryan had noticed something that the others missed. When Jake fed the dragons, he always looked at them in the eyes. He spoke to them in a soft voice, even though they could not understand his words. He pet their scales gently and made sure they were comfortable before giving them food. When other people tried to feed the dragons, they just put the food down and stepped back. They were afraid of the dragons and treated them like dangerous animals. Jake treated them like children who needed love. "But that still does not explain the food problem," Dr. Foster said. "Why do the dragons only accept food that Jake has touched?" Kate had been studying dragon culture in the colony's computer files. She found some interesting information about how dragon families worked. Dragon children are very sensitive to emotions, she read. They can sense feelings through touch and smell. In dragon families, only parents and close family members feed the young. This gave Jake an idea. "Maybe they think I am part of their family now," he said. "When I touch the food, they can sense that I care about them. When other people touch it, they can only sense fear or curiosity." To test this idea, Jake asked Lisa Thompson to try something different. Instead of just putting food down for the dragons, she held Ember gently and spoke to him in a kind voice for several minutes. Then she offered him some bread. Ember looked at the bread for a long time. Finally, he took a small bite. It was not much, but it was the first time he had eaten food from someone other than Jake. The Empress watched this with great interest. "You humans have something we dragons have forgotten," she said to Jake. "You know how to show real care without expecting anything back." Jake did not understand what she meant, so the Empress explained. In dragon society, everything was about rank and power. Dragons only helped others if they could get something in return. Parents fed their children because it was their duty, not because they felt love. Servants fed royal children because they were ordered to, not because they cared. "My children have never known what it feels like to be loved just for who they are," the Empress said sadly. "In our world, everyone wants something from us. Everyone treats us well because we have power and money. But you, Jake Martinez, you have nothing to gain from helping us. You care about my children simply because they needed help." Jake felt uncomfortable with this praise. "I just did what anyone would do," he said. "No," the Empress replied. "You did what humans do. Dragons would not help someone unless they could profit from it. We have become cold and selfish over the centuries. We forgot how to love without conditions." The more time the Empress spent with Jake, the more she learned about human ways. She watched how the colony people helped each other during hard times. When old Pete's water recycler broke, his neighbors shared their water with him without asking for payment. When Mary Johnson got sick, other women brought food to her family. "Your people are poor in money, but rich in kindness," the Empress told Jake. "My people are rich in money, but poor in kindness. Perhaps this is why my children were dying." They were starving for love, not food. Jake began teaching the young dragons simple human games. He showed them how to play hide and seek around the colony buildings. He told them stories about Earth and about humans who overcame great challenges through hard work and caring for each other. The dragons loved these stories. Their favorite was about a poor human girl who saved her village from a terrible monster by being brave and kind. They made Jake tell it over and over again. Azura, the smallest dragon, became especially close to Jake. She would sit next to him while he ate his meals and copy everything he did. If Jake drank water, she drank water. If Jake scratched his head, she scratched her head. It made Jake laugh, and when he laughed, all three dragons made happy chirping sounds. The Empress began asking Jake about human culture. She wanted to know how humans raised their children, how they chose their leaders, and how they decided what was right and wrong. Jake was not very educated, but he told her what he knew about human values, like fairness, helping others, and never giving up. On Earth, we have a saying. Jake told her one evening as they watched the three dragons play. It takes a village to raise a child. That means everyone in the community helps take care of the children, not just the parents. The Empress thought about this for a long time. In dragon society, only the parents care for their children. Everyone else ignores them or treats them as future tools for power. Perhaps this is why my children were so unhappy. As the days passed, the young dragons grew stronger and healthier. Their scales became bright and shiny again. They played and laughed and explored the colony with Jake as their guide. But more importantly, they began to trust other humans too. Lisa Thompson became their second favorite person after Jake. Dr. Foster learned to pet them gently when she checked their health. Even some of the rough miners started bringing small gifts to the dragon children. Pretty rocks they found while digging, or pieces of metal shaped like toys. The Empress saw all of this and began to understand something important. Her children were not sick in their bodies. They were sick in their hearts. They needed love and friendship, not medicine and expensive food. Jake Martinez, she said one evening, you have taught me something more valuable than all the treasures in my empire. You have shown me what my children really needed, not a better life, but a life filled with people who truly care about them. 2 weeks had passed since the dragons arrived at the colony. Jake's life had changed completely. He no longer worried about money or his broken mining drill. Instead, he spent his days teaching 3 young dragons about human ways and watching them grow stronger each day. The Empress had decided to stay longer than planned. She told her advisors back home that she needed more time to understand why her children had gotten better. But Jake knew the real reason. She was learning things about leadership and love that she had never known before. Every morning, Jake would wake up to find Azura sleeping next to his home unit. She had made this her special spot, and none of the dragon guards dared to move her. Ember and Storm usually slept nearby, curled up together like puppies. The 3 dragons had learned to understand some human words. They knew their names, and they knew words like food, play, and story time. When Jake called them, they came running with their tails, wagging like excited dogs. Jake had started teaching them about human work too. He showed them how humans grew food in the colony's small gardens. The dragons loved digging in the dirt with their claws, even though they made more mess than help. They watched the human children go to school and wanted to learn human letters. And Numbers. The Empress spent most of her time watching Jake with her children. She was amazed by how patient he was with them. When Ember accidentally broke something with his tail, Jake just cleaned it up and showed him how to be more careful. When Storm got scared during a thunderstorm, Jake held her until she felt safe. Again, how do you know what to do? The Empress asked Jake one day. You have never raised dragon children before. Jake smiled as he watched Azura try to copy how he tied his shoes. "Children are children," he said. "Dragon or human, they all need the same things. They need someone to care about them, someone to teach them right from wrong, and someone to help them when they are scared." The Empress had been thinking about her own childhood. Her parents had been cold and distant. They fed her the best food and gave her the best teachers, but they never played with her or told her stories. She had grown up thinking that was normal for royal families. "I want to be a better mother," she told Jake, "but I do not know how." In dragon culture, showing too much love to your children is seen as weakness. It makes them soft and unable to rule. Jake looked at the 3 young dragons playing together in the dirt. They were laughing and rolling around, getting completely filthy. "Look at them," he said. "Are they weak? They are strong because they are happy. Happy children grow up to be strong adults." The Empress began spending more time playing with her children instead of just watching them. At first, she was awkward and unsure, but Jake taught her simple games, and soon she was laughing with her children like any human mother would. The colony people had gotten used to having dragons around. At first, everyone had been scared, but when they saw how gentle the young dragons were and how much they loved Jake, people started to relax. Some of the human children even became friends with the dragon children Dr. Foster had been studying the dragon's health and was amazed by their progress. "Their physical condition has improved dramatically," she told Jake. "But more than that, their mental state is completely different. They are confident, curious, and social. Before, they were withdrawn and depressed." Kate Williams had made an interesting discovery about dragon biology. "Dragon children need emotional connection to develop properly," she explained. "Their brains actually grow differently when they feel loved and secure. Without that connection, they become weak and sick, even if their bodies are healthy." This explained why the royal dragon children had been dying. They had everything they needed for their bodies, but nothing they needed for their hearts and minds. News of the Dragon Empress staying at the human colony had spread throughout the galaxy. Some dragons back home were not happy about it. They thought their ruler was wasting time with inferior beings. Others were curious about what she was learning. Commander Greg Patterson arrived from Earth with a diplomatic team. He was worried that the dragons might be planning to take over the colony. When he saw the Empress playing catch with her children and a group of human kids, he was very confused. "What exactly is happening here?" he asked Lisa Thompson. Lisa smiled as she watched Jake teaching Storm how to skip stones across the colony's water reservoir. "A miracle," she said. "These dragons are learning to be a family, and we are learning that friendship can cross any barrier." Helen Reed, Earth's top alien diplomat, had come with Commander Patterson. She had expected to find a tense political situation. Instead, she found the most powerful ruler in this part of the galaxy asking a poor human miner for advice on child rearing. "This is unprecedented," Helen whispered to Lisa. "The Zephyrian Empire has never shown interest in human culture before. They have always seen us as primitives." The Empress overheard this conversation. "We were wrong," she said simply. "We thought that having advanced technology and great wealth made us superior. But we forgot the most important things. We forgot how to love, how to care for each other, and how to find joy in simple things." That evening, Jake was telling the dragons their favorite bedtime story when the Empress sat down beside them. Usually, she stood at a distance and listened. Tonight, she joined the circle like any other family member. "Tell me the story too," she said to Jake. "I want to learn all the human stories, you know." As Jake told the story of the brave girl who saved her village, the Empress realized something important. The girl in the story was not the strongest or the richest person in the village. She was just someone who cared enough to try to help others. Just like Jake Dot after the children fell asleep, the Empress and Jake sat together under the stars. "Jake Martinez," she said, "you have given me back my children and taught me how to be a real mother. How can I ever repay you?" Jake looked at the sleeping dragons and then at the vast sky above them. "You do not owe me anything, Your Majesty. Seeing them happy is enough payment for me." The Empress was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "Again, I have been thinking about my empire. For too long, we have ruled through fear and power. We have forgotten that true strength comes from caring for others. I want to change this, but I do not know how." Jake did not have an easy answer for her. He was just a simple man who had learned to care for others through his own hard experiences. But he had an idea. "Maybe you could start small," he said. "Find people in your empire who need help, and help them not because you have to, but because you want to. Show them the same kindness you are learning to show your children." The Empress nodded slowly. "Yes, I think that is exactly what I need to do." 3 weeks after the dragons arrived, trouble came to the colony. Jake was teaching Azura how to play checkers when the sky filled with dark shapes. More dragon ships were coming, but these looked different from the Empress's bioship. These ships were black and covered with sharp metal spikes. They looked like weapons built to kill. The Empress stood up quickly when she saw the ships. Her face went pale, and her scales lost their bright color. "Duke Vorthik," she whispered. "He has come to challenge me." Jake had never heard this name before, but he could tell from the Empress's fear that this Duke was bad news. The 3 young dragons ran to hide behind Jake, sensing their mother's worry. "Who is Duke Vorthik?" Lisa Thompson asked as the colony's emergency alarms started ringing. "He is my cousin," the Empress explained. "He has always wanted my throne. He thinks I am weak because I care about my children. Now he will say that staying here with humans proves I am unfit to rule." The black ships landed around the colony, surrounding it completely. Dragon soldiers in dark armor poured out of the ships. They carried weapons that glowed with dangerous energy. Jake could see that these dragons were bigger and meaner looking than the Empress's guards. A huge dragon stepped out of the largest ship. He was even bigger than the Empress, with black scales and red eyes. Scars covered his face and arms, showing that he was a fighter. This had to be Duke Vorthik, cousin Zelthara. He shouted in a voice like thunder, "I have come to save the Empire from your weakness. You have disgraced our people by living with these primitive humans. You are no longer fit to rule." The Empress walked forward to face her cousin. Jake could see that she was scared, but she tried to look brave for her children. "I am still your Empress, Vorthik. You have no right to challenge me." Duke Vorthik laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a mountain. "Look at you, playing with human babies and learning their simple games. You have forgotten what it means to be a dragon. The Empire needs a strong ruler, not a weak mother who cares more about feelings than power." Jake felt angry hearing someone talk to the Empress this way. Over the past weeks, he had seen how much she loved her children and how hard she was trying to be a better leader. She was not weak at all. Commander Patterson and his Earth soldiers were trying to help, but their weapons were too small to fight dragons. The colony's defenses were built to keep out wild animals and bandits, not an army of alien warriors. "We cannot fight them," Lisa told Jake quietly. "We have no weapons that can hurt those ships." But Jake was thinking about something else. He looked at the frightened faces of the human colonists, and then he looked at the 3 young dragons hiding behind him. An idea was forming in his mind. "Maybe we do not need to fight them," Jake said. "Maybe we can outsmart them." Jake knew that dragons were proud creatures who thought humans were stupid. Duke Vorthik would never expect humans to have clever plans. Jake also knew the colony better than any dragon visitor. He had lived here for 5 years and knew every building, every tunnel, and every hiding place. "What are you thinking?" the Empress asked. Jake knelt down and spoke to Azura, Ember, and Storm. "Do you three want to help protect the colony and your mother?" The young dragons nodded eagerly. They had learned to love this place and these people. They did not want to see anyone get hurt. Jake explained his plan quickly. The humans would use the colony's mining tunnels to move around without being seen. They would use their industrial equipment in ways the dragons would not expect. Most importantly, the 3 young dragons would help by using their natural abilities in new ways. Duke Vorthok was getting impatient. "Enough talk, cousin. Face me in combat, or I will destroy this pathetic human settlement and take your throne by force." "Wait," the Empress called out. "If you want to challenge me, do it properly. By dragon law, any challenge must follow the ancient rules." Duke Vorthok smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Yes, the old ways. Single combat between rulers. When I defeat you, your children will serve me, and these humans will be my slaves." But Jake stepped forward. "Actually, there is another rule you forgot about." Everyone turned to look at the human miner. Duke Vorthok laughed. What could a primitive human know about dragon law? Jake had been learning about dragon culture from the Empress. She had told him about the old traditions that most modern dragons had forgotten. The ancient law says that a ruler can choose a champion to fight for them. The Empress chooses me. Duke Vorthok laughed even harder. "A weak human against me? This is a joke." But the Empress understood what Jake was doing. "I accept this choice," she said formally. "Jake Martinez will be my champion." Jake was not planning to fight the huge dragon with his fists. That would be suicide. Instead, he was counting on dragon pride and human cleverness. "The combat will have rules," Jake announced. "We will compete to see who can better protect the people they claim to lead. You try to capture the colony using only your soldiers. I will try to stop you using only the people and resources here. Whoever wins after 1 hour gets to rule." Duke Vorthok thought this sounded easy. "Agreed, little human. When I crush your pathetic defenses, everyone will see how weak your Empress truly is." As soon as the challenge began, Jake put his plan into action. The human colonists disappeared into the mining tunnels like they had practiced, but they were not just hiding. They were using the tunnels to move around under the ground. Jake had positioned the colony's mining equipment in clever ways. When Duke Vorthok's soldiers tried to enter the main buildings, they triggered traps that Jake had built using ore crushers and rock drills. The dragons found themselves caught in machinery designed to break apart the hardest rocks. The 3 young dragons helped in ways their uncle never expected. They used their small size to crawl through air vents and unlock doors from the inside. They used their ability to breathe small amounts of fire to disable the enemy ship's sensors. Most importantly, they used their knowledge of their uncles, soldiers, to predict where they would attack next. Azura had learned to mimic human voices perfectly. She used this skill to give false orders to the enemy dragons, sending them to the wrong places at the wrong times. Ember and Storm worked together to create illusions using their natural camouflage abilities, making the enemy think humans were in places where they were not. The colonists fought back using their mining tools as weapons. They knew every inch of their home, and they used this knowledge to stay 1 step ahead of the dragon soldiers. When the dragons expected them to run, the humans attacked. When the dragons tried to surround them, the humans vanished into hidden passages. Duke Vorthok became more and more frustrated as his perfect soldiers were outfought by humans with simple tools and clever plans. He had expected to win easily, but instead his forces were being embarrassed by miners and farmers. As the hour neared its end, Jake played his final card. He had been saving the colony's most powerful mining laser for the right moment. This laser was designed to cut through the hardest metals in the deepest mines. Jake had spent the whole hour positioning it to aim at Duke Vorthic's flagship. "Time!" Jake called out as the hour ended. "Let us see who protected their people better." Duke Vorthic looked around and was shocked. Most of his soldiers were trapped in mining equipment or lost in the tunnel systems. His ships had been disabled by the young dragons. Not a single human had been seriously hurt, while his proud army had been defeated by farmers with shovels and children with fire breath. "This is impossible," Duke Vorthic roared. "Humans cannot defeat dragons." But the Empress stepped forward with a proud smile. "My champion has proven that true strength comes from working together and caring for others. You came here with the most powerful weapons in the galaxy, but you lost to people fighting to protect their home and family." The other dragons who had come with Duke Vorthic looked ashamed. They had been told that humans were weak and stupid, but they had just been outfought by the very people they had planned to enslave. Duke Vorthic knew he had lost, but he was too proud to admit it. He pulled out his personal weapon and aimed it at Jake. "If I cannot rule the Empire, then I will at least kill the human who humiliated me." But before he could fire, Azura, Ember, and Storm jumped in front of Jake. They spread their small wings and roared as loudly as they could. They were still just children, but they were brave enough to protect the human who had shown them love. The Empress moved faster than Jake had ever seen anyone move. She knocked the weapon from her cousin's hand and pinned him to the ground. "Enough," she commanded. "You have lost fairly. Accept defeat with honor, or face the judgment of the entire Empire." Duke Vorthic looked around at his defeated soldiers and the humans who had beaten them. Slowly, he bowed his head. "I yield," he said quietly. The crisis was over, but Jake knew that everything had changed. The young dragons had proven that they could be brave when needed. The Empress had shown that she could be both a loving mother and a strong ruler. And the humans had proven that they deserved respect from the galaxy's most powerful empire. That evening, as they celebrated their victory, the Empress made an announcement. "The colony of Kepler-7 is now under the protection of the Zephyrian Empire. But more than that, it will be a place where both our species can learn from each other." Jake was offered a position as ambassador between humans and D.